celebrated my husband and I, we just celebrated our 34th wedding anniversary. 34 years, that's a really long time. To say that I met him, I believe in 1987. So it was a really long time ago. And if you get a chance to check out the pictures, I show a picture of what we looked like when we were dating back then, and then also a picture of what we looked like when we got married back in 1991, for anybody who's interested. But it's been a wonderful ride, and for anyone who's married, you know that it's work and that a lot goes into it. However, it's highly recommended from where we sit, and I think it's a great thing, and it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made. So what I decided to do is come up with 7 lessons that I believe that my husband would agree that he's learned these lessons during the 34 years as well. So I wanted to share those with you for anybody who's thinking about getting married, or whoever is married and who's going to try to stay in it to win it, because you really have to be in it to win it if you're going to experience any longevity, especially like some doggone 34 years. So without further ado, let's hop to it. All right, and I made notes, like I said, to try to stay on point. All right, so number 1, marriage is a decision you make every day. Anybody that you see that's been married for any number of years or length of time, it's a decision that you make every day. Every day you may not feel like, all lovey-dovey, roses and champagne and all of the gooey things that you might see on the Hallmark Channel, or in romantic comedies or whatever. There's a lot of work that goes into being married, and some days the person's going to get on your last nerves, or you're just not going to feel like being bothered because of whatever's going on at work, or what's going on with the kids, or your finances, or anything. It's just like an up and down type event, because that's how life is. So what marriage is, you choose a life partner and you say, hey, I want to build a life with this person, and for better or for worse, this is the person that I'm going to be with. So one day everything's wonderful, the next day it's like, doggone it, he's getting on my nerves, or she's getting on my nerves. And so you don't run away at the first sign of trouble, or when the person is getting on your nerves. You don't end friendships with your best friend when they get on your nerves, or with your sister or brother or your mother or father. Just because they get on your nerves, it doesn't mean the relationship is over. That's the thing that a lot of people really need to get back to as they're getting married. They need to realize that it's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows. There's some days it's going to be, laundry and poop that you have to clean up with either your baby or your dog, and there are bills that you got to pay, and tuition, and all sorts of things that card payments, all sorts of things that need to happen. And it's a struggle, but hopefully those things, as you're making your decision, will pull you together, and you'll just say, okay, look, I don't care what's going on. We're making an active decision that you're my person, and you're the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with. That's the decision you made when you got married. And so every day you got to wake up, and regardless of what happened yesterday or the day before, you need to make that decision to continue on. And it's one day at a time, 1 week at a time, 1 month, and 1 year. And then who knows, you'll be at 34, 44, and beyond. So that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned. It's a decision. If you see somebody that's still married, they made an active decision that we want to stay married, and we're going to do the work. And if you are married and you're struggling with those decisions, that's what counselors and therapists are for. Before you just say, irreconcilable differences, definitely try to talk to somebody to work it out, because marriage is worth the fight. If there's no beating or cheating, criminal activity, putting your kids in danger, other than that, you really need to be in it to win it, and you got to keep pushing and make your decision. Okay, check number 1. Number 2, you have to realize that you're a team, And you may be individuals, and it's a good thing to still be individuals, but you are a team, a cohesive unit that kids shouldn't be able to undermine, that your sister, your brother, your mother, your cousin shouldn't be able to feel that they can break up your united front, because you really have to be on the same team and realize that you're not fighting against each other. You're fighting to stay together, one thing, and then also for a common goal, like whether it be your financial future, the future of your family, like including your kids, where you live, how you live. Those are team building activities. You really have to be on the same page, and you want to move forward. And that's why a lot of ladies today talk about they don't submit to their husbands. I married someone who we're equally yoked. That's a beautiful thing. A lot of times Christians, the Bible talks about being equally yoked. And that means that you're finding somebody that has a similar mindset, a similar belief system, and that when you guys disagree, you're able to come together and say, okay, well, this is what the Bible says. This is the thing that unifies us. We're both Christians. And so, not saying that marriages can only succeed if you're Christians, but I'm just saying you need to be on the same page, because this is probably one of the biggest team sports in the world, being married. And it means that you have to agree how you're going to move forward. How are you going to raise the kids? How are you going to bring them up from a religious perspective, from a discipline perspective? Some person might be a timeout. Someone might be spank them on the legs, or tap that hand or something. You really have to be there. And so you really need to figure out the best way to move forward. And so with my husband, if he says, if I come to him and I say, oh, hey, I was thinking we should buy, another car, and, and here we have a loan that's at this interest rate, and that we can do it, and we should move forward. I work. I bring home money. I bring home good money. So why can't I make decisions like this? But I'll bring that to the table. And then my husband will say something typically well, we probably really shouldn't do that right now, because, we might want to buy, another home, or we might want to buy another rental property, or we might want to, get another house. And then if this is on our credit, it'll limit what we can do. So maybe we should wait for that. It's maybe we can just drive the cars that we have for a while. It's and then there's some women that I know that have said, well, I went out and I got a car loan anyway. See, that's not the household that we're in. That's not how this team works. I actually value his opinion. And so, doggone it, I listened to him. And we didn't get that car loan. And I'm so thankful that we didn't now, because as we're looking at places where we might retire and, and buy another home in some other area, having that car loan follow us would have been a bad thing. It would be very limiting. It would, mean that we might have to sell one place to get another place, whereas we might want to keep something. So you need to, if you haven't already, pick a husband whose vision you can follow, and then so that you guys can be a good team in terms of moving forward. So I listened to the coach in our situation, and so we agreed that wasn't the best decision for us. There's some times that he'll tell me, well, this is what I think, and then I'll say, well, hey, this is what I think, and maybe we should do it a different way. And he'll hear me, and then we'll make a decision that we're going to move forward. And so sometimes he's too extreme on one end, I'm too extreme on the other. And what I've often said to him is that God put us together because the right answer is somewhere in the middle. And so the team decides that we're going to go with that middle of the road approach a lot of times. However, even though you're a team, you do have to look at your individual strengths, your individual gifts. I'm the person who wants to do the bill pays. He's not going to remember when, his American Express is due, when my American Express is due, when the utilities are due or whatever. And he doesn't want to log into the online bill pays every month. I like to do that. I don't want to do the taxes. I don't want to do stuff outside. I like to do stuff inside. I'm not shoveling snow. I don't want to fool with the trash. I don't want to wash my car. I don't want to get my gas. And so we figure out where we are both best, and then we do our respective roles. Same thing with the kids. I told the boys, you want me on your team in the morning. You don't want your father on your team because he doesn't like to wake up. You don't want me on your team at night because I'm going to fall asleep, probably around 10 o'clock. And so if you need some help at 11 o'clock, you better call your father. So that's the thing. We both bring our individual strengths, and it's not like we have to be joined at the hip. There's some times where I'm like, look, time out. I need some time on my own. And so then he'll say, well, what do you want to do? And I'll say, well, like for my birthday, like I want to have a weekend at some point where I can go to a hotel by myself and just chill and just do whatever the heck I want to do. And so he's like, oh, cool. And he'll stay and watch sports, or like I might go visit our sons. He might go visit our sons, but like we're still together. And it's funny when we're at hotels a lot of times, on vacation, we allow ourselves to do our individual things and we come back together as a couple. Like it's funny, on our vacation for our anniversary, this lady, she said, I've never met your husband. It's because she worked the early morning shift and she left before 9:30 or 10 o'clock. And so she says, I always see you, but I don't see him. Same thing, I was on a cruise and this lady, she said, are you on the cruise alone? And I said, no. My husband just sleeps late. Like I'm usually out of the room by like 7:30 at the latest. And at this place called Summer Camp in Oak Bluffs in Martha's Vineyard, I like to sit in these little chairs and I sit there with my coffee and like I'm doing my devotion, I'm reading and doing all sorts of stuff. And so by the time 8:30, 9 o'clock rolls around, I make my husband's coffee, take it back to the room because he's just waking up and putting on his clothes and getting moving. But I've already been up for a few hours. So that's an individual thing. Does he need to wake up just because I'm waking up? No, he does not. But believe it, I've been an individual for those few hours, and then it's like, okay, here's your coffee. Do you want to go for a walk? And then we go do stuff together. But is there anything bad about the fact that I wanted to do my own thing in the morning? Same thing on the cruise. I would wake up, do my devotion. People would see me sitting alone and they'd assume that I was alone, but my husband was just asleep. He's not an early riser. I am. I'm not a late riser. So sometimes somebody might see him, like up, and I've fallen asleep. So we can be individuals, but we are a part of a team, and we bring our individual experiences back for the greater good of the marriage and of the family. Okay, number 2, I rambled. I'm sorry. Okay, number 3, be a soft place to land for each other and treat each other with respect. The world is hard enough on people, especially men. So when they come home, you don't want to be, combative, nagging, angry, even though it's a chore not to be that, especially, when life can be kind of, the roller coaster that I was speaking of earlier. But for the most part, you want to be that friend to say, how was your day? What's going on? And if something is going on, because there used to be times where I'd come home and my husband would say, well, how was your day? And it's like, it's nothing I want to say, other than to Jesus, because things are not good. Like depending on the job, it was bad at times and I didn't want to talk about it. But he'd say, well, you go upstairs, take a moment, and I'll like warm stuff up, and like he might clean up afterwards or whatever, or maybe take the kids back during the day when they were younger and still at home, and he'd say, well, I'll hang out with the boys, I'll take them up to the basketball court or something. And so so he gave me the space that I needed. He was a soft place to land for me, and I'm a soft place to land for him, where I might say, well, let me make your favorite food or something. Do you want me to do whatever you might want me to do? And then make sure that your home is a peaceful place where somebody wants to come home to you, where you're not, as soon as they hit the door, you're not nagging or fussing. And he even said to me, probably about 10 years ago, as soon as I come in the house, don't tell me about the problem immediately. At least let me have a moment to breathe before we start talking about the problems of the day. And so I kind of carried that with me. And usually, like on a Friday night, we're not talking about, problems that we need to take care of the following week. I don't even like to open mail at the end of the evening. I would prefer to wake up, and open it during the day when you can actually do something about it, because all you'll do is wind up, stewing, worrying about the worst case scenario in the evenings. So you really want your home to be a nice, peaceful place for both of you to land, and not like another war zone that's out in the world. But anyway, okay, so that's number 3. All right, number 4, this should probably be higher, but you really need to use kind words when you're dealing with your spouse. I see so many people cursing at their spouses, or calling them names, like the term stupid, or like telling someone shut up. I just can't even imagine where that should exist in a healthy marriage. If you're doing that, you might want to do that, because words, you can't take them back. And even if you say you're sorry, the person still remembers if you tell them to shut up. Like there was a wife, we were at their house for a Christmas party, and she called her husband a twit. And there was just this awkward silence. He didn't say anything, but my husband was saying, you would have one time to call me a twit in front of people. And I'm like thinking, on his worst day, there's no way that I would ever call him a name in front of people. And even privately, I don't think name calling is a good, healthy thing. You can say, I didn't appreciate that. You're getting on my nerves. I wish you would stop that. I don't like that. We use our big girl words. We don't call people names, and we don't curse at anyone. And praise the Lord, my husband doesn't curse, or at least not where I can hear it. I couldn't imagine if he cursed me out, or called me a B word or something. I just don't think a healthy marriage has any place for name calling, or even for saying, well, you always do this, or you never do that. Those are extreme words. Like you could say, sometimes, you do this, or a lot of times you do this. I don't like it when you do this or that. It's better to do that than to assassinate someone's character by telling them something that you're mad about. Focus on what you're mad about, and don't do anything to assassinate their character as you're explaining it to them. Okay, so number 4, use kind words. Number 5, don't let the sun go down on your wrath. That's a biblical scripture, but don't go to bed angry if you can help it. Am I saying that I've never gone to bed angry? No, I'm not saying that, because I'd be lying. There have been times where I have been mad, and you wake up and you're still mad. But if you can, it's healthier for your marriage to try to work things out before you go to sleep. Even if you have to say, look, I didn't appreciate this. I'm mad about A, B, C, D, element of P, and we need to work this out. And so even if the person isn't ready to work it out, just say your part. Whether, you just want to say, this is what I'm upset about. And then at some point I want to work it out, but just get it out there. Don't let the night go away without you trying to at least resolve it. And if, say, your husband isn't ready, or your spouse isn't ready to hear what you're saying, maybe just write it down and then share it with them in the form of an email or a handwritten letter, because I'm all about writing the letters. I like to get stuff out so that I'm not stewing on it. And from a Christian perspective, where the devil is, having a field day with my flesh or my mind, and I'm going through scenarios of what I'm going to do and what I'm going to say, it's better to get that stuff out so you're not sleeping with that and it gets worse. And heaven help you, don't let weeks go by where you're mad at your spouse about something. Your spouse isn't a mind reader, and so unless you tell them what you're struggling with, what you're upset about, they're not going to know, and they're going to keep repeating the same mistakes. And then by the time you talk about it, you're going to be so mad that it's not going to be healthy, because you're going to be getting them for old and for new. And so it's better not to have like a trash compactor type experience. You want to not just keep building one hurt, one anger on top of the other. What you want to do is like, last week I didn't appreciate when you said X. It hurt my feelings. And sometimes I think it's a healthier way to explain something, to say, not that you're a bad, evil person that's always doing something wrong, but it hurts my feelings when you talk about this, or when you say this or that, or I don't like that. That makes me feel small. That, it brings up stuff from my past. Just use big girl words to explain what you're thinking, and then, that'll keep hopefully the anger from sticking around from one day to the next, because you really need to get rid of that. Otherwise, your marriage isn't going to be as healthy as it could be. Alrighty, number 6, learn how to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong, because it's a given. If anyone thinks that they're not going to do stuff wrong in a marriage, you're kidding yourself. Everyone's going to do something wrong. Everyone's going to put their foot in their mouths at some point. You're going to hurt somebody's feelings. You're going to make a mistake. Marriage is not about not making mistakes. It's about how you handle it when you do act a fool, when you do act up, when you do something wrong. And I'm here to tell you that my mouth gets me into a whole lot of trouble. But learn how to say, I was wrong. Practice it with me. I was wrong. And then the other buzzword or buzz phrase is, I am sorry. Please forgive me. Those are words that I've come to say so easily now. And sometimes, like when I've done stuff bad, I'll be on the treadmill, and then I don't know if it's the Holy Spirit or if just my mind saying, you were kind of hard on him yesterday. You should really apologize for this or for that. And then when I'm doing devotion, I'm thinking about it, and I wind up repenting a lot of times. And then, I'll just say, well, when I said blah, blah, blah yesterday, I was wrong. I shouldn't have said that. I am sorry. I was wrong. Those phrases go a long way in healing the hurts that happen inadvertently in a marriage. And then number 7, stay friends and keep the fun around. Have private jokes. Like my husband and I, we have like jokes where we'll pull like a scene from the movie that we or a movie that we might like, and then like say if we're mad or something in the heat of the moment, we might like pull an applicable scene out of there and just say that. And the next thing you know, like you were mad about something, and then you're kind of laughing because you're pulling from one of your favorite movies. And that's another reason why you really need to be equally yoked too. You can be different, because my husband and I, we're very different, but there's some movies that we love. Like we might pull a scene from the movie, let's see, what was it with Robert De Niro, A Bronx Tale. We might pull something from that. Like where Sonny, the character in it, says, nobody cares. And so my husband might say something like that. Or, other movies, like I love The Equalizer with Denzel, and he might, like pull out something like where the villain said, what do we get for our money? No information, no protection, no assurances. And then he'll say a scene, from a movie that I really like. And so that cracks me up. Or like from cartoons or things that we might have watched in our childhood. And so we wind up laughing. And even when you're having difficult times, because believe me, in 34 years of marriage, you're going to have financial issues. You're going to have issues with children. You're going to have issues with jobs, with family members outside and stuff. Just a whole lot of things try to pull you apart. And so, but when you can laugh together, when you can keep that friendship going, oh my goodness, you're really cooking with Crisco then. And so definitely you got to keep the fun in. Are we joined at the hip? No. In fact, right now he's in the basement probably watching sports. Do I have to watch sports? No, I don't have to watch sports. But we'll come together later, like after we've done our individual things, and that team gets back in, and then we're laughing and joking about things that we have at our common core. And it's such a blessing, and hopefully you guys can find things to laugh about or to still have fun with. Still be your individual selves, but find things that you can do that are fun as a couple. And then I have a bonus one, and I promise I'll let you go. The bonus one is one of the biggest things that I see is causing a problem with marriages in the last decade or so, is watching reality TV or watching what you see on social media, and then judging your marriage by what you might see on the Real Housewives of Atlanta or Beverly Hills or New Jersey, if that's even still on, because I stopped watching those shows because they really get on my nerves, the drama. And they always show, say if a new relationship happens, oh, he bought her all of these flowers, like Kanye West, like with the Kardashians and things, when they were married. Oh, he just bought all of these flowers, and he bought her a Bentley, and he bought her, like you might see Cardi B and Offset, and they're acting like they're so happy, and you see them at that one little snippet of time, and then you judge your spouse by that, or your marriage by that, because you're thinking you're missing out on something. I remember once Jada Pinkett was talking about Will Smith in a magazine, and she was just like wearing the most beautiful clothes, and this beautiful layout, and she was talking about them going to Norway for a family vacation, and they were going hiking. And I told my husband, I said, I want to go hiking in Norway. And then he said, okay, maybe one day. And he quickly got off of that topic, because to go to some Norway is expensive. I don't want to hike in the United States, so why do I want to go to Norway to hike? But anyway, it seemed so exciting. And then they would interview like people like Will Smith, and he'd be talking about his marriage, and someone would say, well, how do you keep things spicy and exciting? And then he'd say, oh, well, when I come back from a movie shoot, I run her bath water, and I have like petals and blah blah blah. And so my husband is like thinking, this is a bunch of junk. And he would pull a scene from the Bronx Tale saying, the working man, he's the hero, he's not the sucker, he's the hero, or something like what Robert De Niro was saying to his son. And what he meant by that was that the man who's there every day, day in, day out, going to that job, bringing money home, he's the real man, not that man who's gone for 6 months and only sees you maybe a few times a month. Like he's getting all the credit because he's doing all this romantic stuff, but he's not with you day in and day out. So we've kind of laughed about that. And then I'm looking at Norway, I'm looking at all the trips and talking about pouring, running the bath water. And then, less than 5 years later, you find out that Jada and Will aren't even together. That she's running around doing entanglements with her son's friend and stuff, where things aren't what they seem. I guess that's my point. And you're like over here giving your husband the side eye because he's not filling a room with flowers. And I think I heard like someone talking about for her husband's birthday, she got a Bentley to take him to the party and stuff. And then someone saying he bought his wife a Rolex. If your husband can't buy you a Rolex, that doesn't mean that you don't have a good marriage. That just means that you guys aren't there yet. And as I'm getting older, I'm realizing that having a Rolex isn't all that I thought it is. Having a happy marriage is better than that. And maybe wearing some Fugazi and going on a great trip and spending some quality time together might be better than all of these things, like where people are saying, he needs to be making, $200,000 a year. So unrealistic that the average person doesn't even make that. Or, he needs to be driving, the biggest Benz or BMW. All of those things are so superficial. And on these shows, these reality shows especially, they show the glamour of relationships. And then when things don't work out, they show, you know, like where they're playing games, where they're, you know, cursing people out, they're acting a complete fool. And the average good man who wants to be married for the long term is not going to put up with a lot of that foolishness. So don't, you know, try to bring that stuff home. Some of those bad behaviors, like where I would see Kenya Moore or like Nene Leakes, you know, acting a fool. If I acted like either of those women, my husband wouldn't still be here. So find out what works for you in your home and leave all of those external, influences. Leave those out of the house. Focus on what makes you guys happy. Don't like try to dress to, emulate the ladies on the Housewives. Work something out with your spouse that you can live with and that he can live with too. And so that was a big bonus, wasn't it? I apologize. I talk so much. But anyway, hopefully that helps you guys to, make your marriage better, or to make your marriage last longer, or to help you realize some of the things that you might want to consider as you're going forward into a new marriage. But hopefully that helps. And that's how I'm over here living that golden girl life, taking it one day at a time, especially with my marriage, trying to get to year 35. Hopefully that helped. If it did, be sure to share this with someone, like or subscribe, but definitely check out my my Instagram page as well as my blog at thatgoldengirllife.com. But anyway, until the next time, have a good one.